Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to Wasteland Talks, my weekly talk show where I talk about whatever the hell I want. And for this week, we have another top three episode, and joining me is one of my close friends, Aaron. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. And Aaron is my book friend. So basically, whenever I talk books on this talk show, Aaron's usually the guest because that is something we certainly have bonded over the years. And we thought we'd bring a little levity to this episode. So we're going to be talking about three books that make us laugh. And could be like it has a funny voice, the author brings some levity to some other genre, or it could be something that's specifically made for, to make people laugh and humor. But I'm going to let you, Aaron, start with your first book.
Cool. I love it. So I was scanning through my Goodreads in preparation for
Mm.
this. I do have
Yeah,
to say, I am not a funny book reader. I'm like, I was
fair.
kind of surprised. I was like, oh, drama, drama, heartbreaking drama. So
Like, I
I,
need a laugh.
I was like, oh my God, am I this depressing? But no, so I found a couple and they're going to be a little, different. I'll tell you, I'll
Okay.
explain why I think they're funny, but a lot of your readers out there might know I'm putting Fourth Wing up there as
Okay.
like one of the first ones. It's a so far just a trilogy, but I believe she has two more books coming out. Um it's funny because of the sarcasm.
Mm.
The sarcasm and the quips in this book. I mean, I fell in love with the first book, and as I'm sure many people who are reading it can attest, it gets struggle bussy a little bit more on the second and the third. But yeah, just there's dragons in it. They're super funny. They're super sarcastic and like just there's a lot of fight and battle scenes, and they'll just like quip because they can talk in each other's minds.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's just that to me, like I have found myself like chuckling as I've been reading it, and my boyfriend will look over at me being like, what is going on with you? So, I had to put it in the mix. Yes, it's one I've actually laughed at. So
It's funny because a lot of the funny books that like humorous books that I've read or listened to recently are usually with Jess, my wife.
Mhm.
Like we're just listening to the most absurd stuff. Because like honestly it's and I think specifically like funny books, humor books can be a lot of fun in audiobooks if you get the right person reading it too.
Mhm.
But
Heck yeah.
what was the name of this series again?
Oh yeah, so the first book is called Fourth Wing, and I think they call it's the Imperium series.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
very
have
good.
not heard of this one, so I will have to check it out. It's so funny because you'll definitely relate to this, but recently I had gotten up to where I caught up on my books. And I'm like, oh, now I need books. And then I bought like 20 books. And now I'm like, well, now I'm not going to need books for a while.
I just recently did that myself. I was like,
There you
oh, I
go.
feel so good. I have no backlog. Everything's cleared out. I can just go to a bookstore, which also was a little bit overwhelming going to a bookstore and not having like anything I was trying to get.
Mm.
But then yeah, same thing. I bought a bunch of books and I'm back where I where I
Yeah,
was.
now it's like, well, I won't have I'll have books for a while now to read.
Hmm.
But I'll definitely add that one because like I went through and made a Google sheet because you know me, of all of the movies and all the books on my wish list. And so now I have a spreadsheet so that I could just bring it up because it was on an Excel document, but like I'm not signing into Office 365 places. Just,
No.
pull up my Google sheet makes it a lot easier. So I have listened and read a lot of humor books over the past, I think, 2 years because honestly, I've been wanting to make my reading time fun a little
I
bit
like
more.
that. Hmm.
As I just finished Fences, because that was super funny and not depressing and super heavy. But at least it's only like 95 pages of a
Let
play.
me write that one down. This goes in my genre.
There you go. But there's one that really stood out to me, and this is an interesting book because it is a combination of a book, a combination of comics and a biography, but it's also a humor book, and it's called Number One is Walking: My Life in the Movies and Other Diversions from Steve Martin. So I love Steve Martin.
Mhm.
I think he's absolutely hilarious. If he pops up in anything, I'm down because he is a ridiculously funny human being. Which only murders in the building. I'm there for the Steve Martin. Um, but
But
this book is so interesting because it's a lot of cartoons of him talking about like big moments in his career. And
Mhm.
like the whole joke of Number One is Walking was where on big movie sets you have like call numbers. And so like there'll be like Number One is walking across set. If you're like on top of the bill. And like that's one of the gags that's in the book of him talking about the experience where he heard Number One is walking for the first time, where he was like leading a movie. And it's so funny because it has his personality and it's also actively trying to be funny. So it
Mhm.
isn't just like his personality, it's like he's actually telling jokes. And they're really funny and they're in this fun setup. He wrote it with Harry Bliss, who's an actual cartoonist for I think the New Yorker. So
Mm.
like having that kind of like caliber of cartooning to go along with your humor, it's a lot of fun. I was really tempted to put my Mel Brooks autobiography, but I know I talked about that on one of our episodes
Yeah, I
because
feel
like
like I
that's just
can't,
his.
but
And that's the thing. If you can find a biography that's an autobiography from somebody funny, and
Mhm.
they take that approach with telling their story. So this one's, and it's an easier read because it is a lot of cartoons along with words.
Love
So
that.
would
Yeah.
recommend. Number one, Walking is a lot of
Mhm.
fun for sure.
Okay.
This is the only like straight up humor book that I put on here because I did find two books that are just really funny that aren't like this isn't like supposed to just be about jokes. It has other stuff going. So, but
Love
Aaron,
that.
what is your number two?
Yeah. No, and I'm writing, I'm like noting that down. I have like work papers, but number one, walking, because as I was looking through my Goodreads, I'm like, clearly I need more levity.
Well, and just a quick side note because this is an actual autobiography, but he did one that is just a bunch of cartoons of his jokes with that writer before that. And why is it so hard for me to find the title of this? Steve Martin's done a lot of stuff apparently in book form. What a renaissance man. Plays the banjo, makes music, is an
All
actor,
around stand-up guy.
stand-up comedian. I'm I'm gonna find it, but you go with your
Okay.
second one.
All right, I like it. So one of the ones I read this last year, and I had to remind myself a little bit. So it's like one of those like you read and you feel good,
Mhm.
but like maybe it doesn't completely stick with you. Was the Guncle.
Okay.
So it does say in parentheses it's like the Guncle number one, so there must be like a few more books after it. I have only read the one.
Or that would be a fun joke.
But yeah, so it's more so too. So this one is like family drama, but like because of the situation, it's like funny, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically the premise is you've got this uncle, not like doesn't have isn't married, doesn't have kids, right?
Mhm.
And a family circumstances puts his niece and nephew in his care for
Mm,
like an extended amount of time. And so, it's just like funny to start because he has
yeah.
no idea what he's doing. Just like, it's like just like not having the proper foods and not having the
Mhm.
proper equipment and just like having to figure out how to do
I have to
things.
feed them.
What's that?
It's like I have to feed them.
Exactly right. He's like, you do this. Like, how do I can't just throw them in the car. It's like, no,
Yeah.
like, So it's really funny, but there is, of course, like the family drama,
Yeah.
family stuff element that I'm drawn to that I love towards the end, and then of course, ends on a good note, not as a
Mhm.
spoiler, not but it's all around it was good, a feel good book. Like I saw that and it's a super fun cover. So I was like scrolling through my Goodreads,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, oh yeah, okay, wait, this one looks happy. Like That was my
always a good
second.
sign. If it has
Yeah,
like
it's
a
a good
fun,
sign.
happy cover, it's like this might actually be some fun.
Yeah.
That does sound like a lot of fun, and I'll have to check that out. The quick side note, the other book that Steve Martin did with Harry Bliss is called A Wealth of Pigeons.
Well, the
I knew it had to do with a bunch of birds, and
pigeon.
the cover is a bunch of pigeons dressed up in high society attire. There is one in a full tuxedo with a top hat and a cane.
Love that.
So you know it's 100% serious.
And very
Um
Steve Martin.
Steve Martin. Now, the next one that I have, so this is satire. So like it's supposed to be funny, but like dark kind of
hmm
funny.
hmm
And it's Cat's Cradle from Kurt Vonnegut.
I was gonna say Vonnegut. I was like that. I know that title.
So this was my first ever Kurt Vonnegut, and I read this in high school for
Mm,
school. And that was probably one of my favorite books that I ever read for school because I just love the dark sense of humor
mhm,
about it. And to be honest, I could have put like any Vonnegut on here because like he just had that kind of deadpan, very biting sense of humor. Because
mhm.
like I'm just gonna read you the synopsis of this book, and this is
Love it.
totally gonna tell you why this is a comedy. So Kurt Vonnegut's cult tale of global destruction preys on our deepest fears of witnessing Armageddon and worse, still surviving it. Dr.
Mhm.
Felix Honecker, one of the founding fathers of the atomic bomb, has left a deadly legacy to the world, where he is the inventor of Ice 9, a lethal chemical capable of freezing the entire planet. So obviously that sounds like it's supposed to be fun. But like I, I will be sitting there reading Kurt Vonnegut and just start laughing out loud to myself because just his way with words. And this
Mhm.
one is so dark. Like this is literally about like the apocalypse,
Mhm.
doomsday
Yeah,
coming for
yeah.
humanity, but still finds a way to make this so hilarious. And I remember just being so enamored by it. And like, he's one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
And the only reason that I haven't read more of his books is because I'm cheap and his paperbacks are like $18.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole
But,
nother video.
but at my local used bookstore that's 2 minutes from my house, which has been a revelation, they have a whole entire section of Vonnegut and they're all like half price or third of price.
There.
And I'm like, I've bought so many Kurt Vonnegut books. I think out of those 20 that I have in there, four of them are Kurt Vonnegut books. And I'm reading one now, Galapagos. So like Cat's Cradle was the one that introduced me to his voice and his satire. And it's I just love the contradiction of just like this is like the worst possible thing, like darkest possible thing you could be talking about, and yet it's funny but also it's like darkly funny and it's like this gallows humor and like I feel like some people might judge you for thinking some of the stuff funny. Like,
No, I feel better because I was like, yeah, I struggle to find funny, but you're kind of like, some of this stuff can be funny, like even when it's
well, and it's just
serious.
like, you laugh or you cry,
Yeah.
and we can choose to laugh.
Yes. And sometimes you laugh so you don't cry.
Exactly. It's just like, well, everybody's gonna die because they're all gonna freeze to death because
hmm
chemical warfare. But
hmm
that's just so wild. You have to laugh at how ridiculous it is, and that's Vonnegut in a nutshell. So Cat's Cradle was like I read this literally when I was probably like 14. So
hmm
like this has been a book that stuck with me for a long time. So
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
and what's your number one?
Okay. I feel like I do have to say, I feel like your books are like I'm like noting them in my mind because I think they're they're better. And I want to try them.
Don't say that.
I'm saying it. It's for the record.
Well, she did say it, and this is being recorded, and I'm not editing it out, so it's on the record. So
Keep it
there you
rolling. But yeah, the last one I had was Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple.
go. Interesting.
Yeah.
So go ahead and talk about the book first.
Okay. Okay. Because it's gonna be funny if this is also your number one, and that's what's interesting. Um
It's not,
But
but I have another story, but I want you to talk about the book first.
yeah, no, okay. So this one I found like again family drama, right? So it's like
Mhm.
it's a little more serious with the if you take into context everything that's going on and essentially a mom like is planning this like trip to Alaska and in the middle of planning this trip she kind of just disappears. And yeah, the story's told from the perspective of her daughter who's trying to like piece together like where'd she go, what happened, like, is she just going to like show up on this trip all of a sudden? So and she just like leaves in the middle of the night too. Like it's very like, it and it sounds bad. It sounds like drama. It's not good. But just from the telling of the perspective and the daughter piecing everything together, there's some, similar maybe to
Yeah.
like Cat's Cradle Return, a little bit dark humor, a little bit of like, she can figure it out and like this isn't as serious as she thinks and like she understands maybe why her mom like disappeared.
Mm.
So yeah, so I had this on the list. I mean, as I said, I did not realize I was going to struggle for funny books as much as I did, but
So I do actually want to read this book
mm,
because I hated the movie.
ah,
And I think it's because I don't think it caught the right tone.
mm-hmm,
Because like the trailers for this played this off as like a straight up silly comedy. And
mm,
I think Richard Linklater is a very talented filmmaker, and I love a lot of his films. I don't think he was the right person for this type of story and humor, and
mm-hmm.
the movie didn't work for me. Fun fact, I have only actively decided to get up and go to the bathroom twice ever during a movie where I'm just like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm sure I'm not gonna miss much. I did during this movie. The only other one
It's
was Morbius, and I'm like, I'm not gonna miss anything. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
oh my God, like, and that's like funny that you say that too, because like the fact that the trailer would be silly comedy, I'm like, I can see comedy, but it's not silly.
No.
Like it's very serious.
And I feel like somebody with a little bit more of like a caustic, sarcastic kind of wit could have probably hit where this needs to be a little bit better, which is
Yes.
why I want to check out the book because if the book has that more of that kind of
Oh,
tone, I
yeah.
think it'd work better. Because like this shouldn't be like a mother abandoning her daughter
It
and
should be
her family
silly.
just up out of like I don't think it should just be like that. Like, oh, it's like family comedy. Just like I
No.
feel like there's a different approach that you could do with this, but that's very interesting. And
Yeah.
I definitely want to check out the book because there's potential. Like, this is an interesting concept.
Yes. Well,
Like, how does a family deal with that? And especially
right.
if it's from the perspective of the daughter.
Right. And well, and it's funny you say this too, and you're like making me, I'm like not gonna watch the movie, but it's making me realize, right? Like when you do watch or read something and you don't love it, to maybe try the other artistic output of it. Because and I think I'm sure we've talked about this. Like I am very much like one or the other. Like if I read the book, I'm not usually gonna watch the movie. If I watch the movie, I don't usually read the book. Like it's very hard for me to like, because I'm like, oh, I know what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that's interesting because I didn't realize they had obviously because I didn't watch it that they had struck such a silly tone. I think the book's
Well,
better. I think the book's
and
better.
not a lot of people went to go see it. I'm
Not a
pretty sure
lot.
that was a pretty big bomb for Richard Linklater too. And I'm not surprised because like it wasn't a particularly enjoyable experience. And
Yeah.
I felt bad because like Kate Blanchett plays the mom,
Yeah.
plays Bernadette, and she's a ridiculously talented actor, but like she's done movies that don't work before. And like I don't know, like I don't think the approach to the material was the best in
Mhm.
how the film went. So that's why I'm more interested to check out the book because I'm like, this idea is interesting. And it had to have been successful in book form if somebody wanted to make this
If
into
you
a
thought it
movie.
was gonna go, yeah, 100%.
So now my last one is actually a really famous humorous book, but I can't help but absolutely love this to pieces, and it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Mm.
I have this beautiful, I should have grabbed it. I have a beautiful leather bound collection of all of the Hitchhiker's Guide books. And like I'm such a big science fiction fan that when I found out that they had a really awesome sci-fi story that was absolutely hilarious, I'm like, I gotta. And it's so funny because like I enjoy the movie well enough that they made of it, but like so much of what makes the book so much fun is that the interludes of the Douglas Adams has such an amazing satirical voice when he's writing. And there'll be just tangents of direct excerpts from the Hitchhiker's Guide that work in a book
Mhm,
because it's
mhm.
like, okay, I get a little excerpt, and it's the funniest interpretations of like
I
Earth stuff, and it's just ridiculous.
love it.
And the fact that like uh you have a depressed, paranoid robot who's one of the main characters in this is absolutely hilarious to the point where I'm pretty sure Radiohead's Paranoid Android song is based off of the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And it's just the cast of characters are so fun, just the whole situation. And Douglas Adams like subverts expectations. Like you're gonna have like you would expect this to play out like this in any kind of regular story, but just kidding, that's not actually what happens. And like
Oh
he's
my
playing
God.
around with the audience as you're reading the book too. And it's so much fun. And honestly, I would love, if I'm not mistaken, they did a BBC audio like recording of this book. And I would love to listen to that, which is so interesting because this was years ago and this was long before audiobooks became
Yeah.
popular and stuff like that. To the point where it's just like they did this BBC broadcast of this being read aloud and played out and stuff like that. It's just so funny. And I love the whole series. The characters are great. And just the sense of humor is just so on point and it plays around with so many elements in science fiction and cliches and stuff like that. Like the even just the premise of this, like this unsuspecting human gets caught up because like they're gonna tear down his house to make a highway. And then he goes to complain to the government and they don't do anything because the bureaucracy sees all of this. And this he's unsuspectingly meets an alien who takes him off of Earth because they're destroying Earth to make a highway in outer space. So like Earth just blows up from the
Yeah.
start, and you're just like, this is wild. And it's just like, well, none of your representation ever came to the office to fight this. And it's just like, we could barely go into space. How did we know that there's this whole and like playing on that kind of idea that like
Bureaucratic thing.
yeah, it's so funny. And that gets me. Like that
Hmm.
kind of humor that plays around with bureaucracy.
I
Cause
love
like
it.
I tutor operations management
Hmm.
and efficiencies and stuff like that. In the existence that we are in, there's so many elements of like this makes no sense.
Yeah. Why
Why
are
do
we
you
doing this?
why does this take 15 steps to do two things?
Hmm.
And this plays on that so much. And just the message of like dolphins were on our planet and they're these super intelligent aliens and left us a message and was like, thanks for all the fishes. And like the meaning of life is a single number. Because like that's what the whole entire thing is just like it's how ridiculous all of existence is.
Yeah.
And this really hits on it. It's a wild read and it's such a crazy series. And with great characters and just so much humor. Like I remember reading that for the first time and just like chuckling to myself the whole entire time because it's like it's so funny. And that's how you do it. That's how you really like take a take a genre like science fiction's been around since arguably Frankenstein was
Yeah.
the first ever science fiction novel. And then like that's over 100 years of
Hmm.
literature. How do you do it fresh? Douglas Adams like hold my beer. Like turns it completely
Let's
upside down.
go.
So let's go. Get that thumb out. We're going
Get
for
that.
a ride.
I want to read this one, and you hyping it up too just now. I This isn't going on my list. So
Mhm.
because I was going through my Goodreads, but I'll be honest, like I feel like I'm missing some backlog for my Goodreads. So I'd also Googled, I was like, okay, like what are some funny books? Like thinking like, will I see one that I have read that like I
Mhm.
forgot I read, right? And that one, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, was like number one. And I was like, hmm, interesting. And then for it to be your number one, I'm like, all right, it's going on. I'm doing it.
It's one of my favorite books because it's just so much fun. It's so clever. And just like a side note, like I mentioned, I've been focusing on a lot more
Hmm.
humorous books. And like they're all by like actors playing characters. Like Philomena Kunk. I don't know if you've heard of her, but like her and her interesting perspective on history is absolutely hilarious. And she has Netflix specials, she has books. Um, Jess and I listened to a whole entire book of Matt Berry in character as his character Stephen Toast, who's a pompous, overly inflated actor.
Hmm.
So he's like, I'm gonna tell you how life should be lived. And just like he's an idiot. So
You're
like the whole entire thing is hilarious.
like, you shouldn't be
And
telling anybody anything.
yeah, nobody should listen to you, Toast. Nobody. And right now we're listening to Steve Coogan as Alan Partridge, his like famous comedic character that kept recurring on BBC and stuff like that. Similarly, trying to give his world perspective on things, and he's a complete idiot.
Like,
So
please stop. Please stop.
it's just like nobody should listen to your advice, sir. Like even Jess and I, like Jess loves nonfiction stuff, and we even listened to Quackery, which is like each chapter is a different thing that humans have thought, oh, that's good for us, and tried to use it as medicine.
Mm,
Like gold,
mm.
drinking gold,
No.
drinking silver, or mercury. you know,
I know
and
Mercury was like yeah, that was prescribed, and you're just kind of
yes,
like, guys.
what are you doing? So like it was funny because it's absolutely ridiculous. And then I got too close to home and it would talk about like in 2019, I'm like,
Mm.
people are still doing stuff like
You're
this.
like, oh no.
Oh
Turn it
no.
off, turn it off.
So I thought this would be a fun one because this would be a fun topic because I know I've tried to bring some levity to because like I was on like a Stephen King
Kick
streak.
for a while, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like shit's dark. Like there's some humor in there, but it's dark.
You come out
So
of it and you're like, why do I not feel so great?
it's like, why do I see vampires and the undead everywhere? I don't know. There could not be any correlation at
No,
all
no, none,
because
no.
all these books that I read. But Aaron, this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you playing along with this. And thank you so much, as always, for coming on and talking books with me.
Well, thank you for having me. And I loved this one was great. And it makes me also realize I need more fun books. So I'm glad to have a few more recommendations.
That's the moral of the story, everybody out there listening. Take a load off, read something fun. But thank you all for listening and always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.